each other, but broadly speaking, the Council of Nicaea did the trick by establishing a consistent theological and political framework for Roman Christianity. In doing so, they co-opted an intrinsically disruptive social force into Roman power structures. Slick move. These two changes marked the start of the East's geographical and religious divergence from the Old Empire, but things really accelerated in the century after. After Constantine's three sons got into a civil war with each other, the world's most tragic introvert Julian got dragged kicking and screaming into being the Roman emperor, whereupon he spent 2 years trying and failing to reconvert the empire to paganism before being speared to death while on a poorly organized campaign in Persia. Then a series of unremarkable emperors took turns doing absolutely nothing to solve the serious problems the empire still faced after Constantine. Wars, weak administration, and a wimpier army than Rome was used to having. Sure, Constantine pulled the hard carry to give the empire another century of life, but things were still looking mighty grim. In came Theodosius, an emperor who had the wild card idea, not actually all that wild card, to permanently split the empire into an independent eastern and western half. Other emperors cut their administration in halves or quarters, but it always came back together one way or another. Only Theodosius made it stick. So it's here in 395 that the Byzantine Empire officially gets going. But that's somewhat of a misnomer, as the Eastern Empire wasn't widely called Byzantine until the 1500s. Confusingly enough, that name was used as early as the 500s, but in specific cases, and usually for poetic effect. But for the empire's whole runtime, as far as its inhabitants were concerned, they were Romei, living in Romania. No ambiguity, still Rome. Back to the Western Imperial collapse at hand, this bisection went pretty poorly for them, but it put the East in a position to stay strong, productive, and cohesive. So if Theodosius indirectly sentenced Western Rome to death, then his successors plunged the knives by responding to the perilous threat of Goths by bribing them to go bother the West instead. Classy. Meanwhile, the Western emperors were too feckless to stop very simple problems from boiling over into Rome getting sacked. Twice. But the Byzantine defense strategy was more than just making everything Italy's problem. At the turn of the 5th century, Constantinople outgrew its first fortifications and began building the Theodosian walls, a massive set of 3-tiered ramparts that defended the city for the next 1,000 years. But even the strongest walls couldn't save the empire from its greatest danger: sports. See, Romans loved their chariot races and aligned themselves with either the blue or the green team. Ah, yes. I see no way in which this rabid tribalism could ever go wrong. But this rapidly spun out of control as the Blues and Greens evolved into entire social clans and began butting heads on politics and religion and started throwing hands about it in the middle of church. But by far, the worst riots broke out during the reign of Emperor Justinian. For context, him and his uncle and adoptive father Justin came from humble beginnings and rose through the military ranks to rule the empire in one of history's rare few reverse regencies, where the younger Justinian was the power behind his father's throne. While he wasn't pulling the imperial strings, Justinian was falling in love with the famed actress Theodora, and they together would become the ultimate power couple of the 6th century. But back to the riots, Emperor Justinian tried to curb the influence of the Blues and Greens in politics and succeeded only in irritating both of them so badly that they teamed up in open revolt. These wily sports fans shouted victory chants and poured out of the Chariot Stadium to light Constantinople on fire for 5 straight days. This might seem excessive, but it was a standard mode of political demonstration. The races were one of a few spots where the citizens of Constantinople would regularly see their emperor, and this proximity meant that mass demonstration was an effective and ultimately common way of expressing political discontent and demanding that the emperor step down. Just as Roman armies often acclaimed a new emperor while on campaign, the centralization of power in Constantinople meant that citizens could de-acclaim them. Even in a monarchy, the citizens held considerable sway, and the old idea of the SPQR wasn't truly dead. That's bad news for Justinian, who was ready to hop on a ship and bail the hell out of there, but Empress Theodora told him to face his fate with honor and live or die as an emperor. Quote, "May I never see the day when those who meet me do not call me empress. If you wish to save yourself, my lord, there's no difficulty. We are rich. Over there is the sea, and yonder are the ships. Yet reflect for a moment whether when you have once escaped to a place of security, you would not gladly exchange such safety for death. As for me, I agree with the adage that royal purple is the noblest shroud." Yes, Messalea. Slay. That is only part of why she's the biggest Hellenic badass this side of Cleopatra. It's good. I'm good. We're good. The Nika riots ultimately fell to the blade during a bloody massacre at the stadium, and Justinian was left to pick up the charred pieces of his ruined city, having earned the brutal honor of being the only Roman emperor to violently oppose deacclimation and succeed. So he made up for it by giving the people a win, immediately setting about rebuilding Constantinople even shinier than before, as that meant a new centerpiece church, the Hagia Sophia. And an evolution from your standard Roman temples, this one's got a dome. And in a doubly brilliant move, the dome is ringed with windows, which cast an ever-changing light onto the gold mosaics, and the halo effect makes the dome look like it's damn near floating. When Justinian first entered the completed church, he exclaimed, "Solomon, I have surpassed thee." We are extremely lucky to still have this masterpiece of a church around today, and you can see the influence of its design all throughout the Eastern Mediterranean and well beyond the Empire's lifetime. Good